Dear friends, thank you for joining and for bearing with us as we do a quick space reset. We're just making sure we have what we need to be comfortable and fresh. So while we wrap that up, how about we enjoy a song or two together? I'm thinking about the sun. The sun, it shines on everyone. The sun, it shines on everyone. No discrimination, no discrimination. The rain, it falls on everyone. The rain, it falls on everyone. No discrimination, no discrimination. My heart belongs to everyone. My heart belongs to everyone. No discrimination, no discrimination.
Welcome everyone. Before we start this session with sound. So, welcome to our current event, which is offering of Dharma Talk. Are we
And there is a camera overlay that occurs.
Just a moment where
Is it good?
got some
I
feedback.
think it's good now. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, so thank you for bearing with our homegrown retreat. And speaking of homegrown, today we have some homegrown offerings from our garden of Sugarplum of the Dharma. And I have the pleasure of introducing two friends who are going to be sharing with us today from their walk of the path. The first is Melanie Gin, and we've been happy at Sugarplum to recently welcome Melanie, who has now moved into Mariposa, and she has brought so much new energy and enthusiasm for the work of community here at Sugarplum. We've been very happy to welcome her. She particularly has brought some lovely skills of group facilitation and organization to our work meetings, which has been something I've enjoyed. Some recent things I learned about Melanie. Melanie has quite a bit of background in learning about trauma-informed mindfulness practices, and she brings a real interest in learning how to apply those principles to the work of social engagement for justice. She is a founding member of the, let me say this right, Gin Institute, is that right, Melanie? Yes. Which is a grassroots organization that makes tech education accessible to Palestinian young people so that those people may have some access to work and resources. And she's also a co-organizer of the Sit, Walk, Listen Peaceful Protest. This is in Berkeley, I believe, in support of Black Lives Matter. Melanie also wanted me to let you know that her new residence that she's living in, she has named the Wonderloaf because of its particular shape, and she is excited to host a open house when COVID isn't so much. She makes a lovely chocolate cupcake, so something to look forward to. But one of the things that I've actually most appreciated about getting to know Melanie is that she has this habit of when someone gives her feedback about something she's working on with the group or something they need from her, she says, in response to that, she always says, "Ah," with a pause, and then she gets curious about what the problem is, and she then offers a helpful solution. And I've just really appreciated that model of like in the moment curiosity about how she can respond in a helpful way. And I found myself kind of trying that in my own life. Whenever someone's like, "You need to look at this," I'm like, "What would Melanie do?" Oh, she'd say, "Ah," and then she'd pick it up in a helpful way. So we look forward to Melanie sharing with us today. Our other co-Dharma Talk offerer is Jonathan Borella. And everybody knows that Jonathan is a founding member of the Sugarplum Sangha. And really is kind of a cornerstone of continuity of practice here at Sugarplum. That is something that all of us as community members really benefit from and rely on. That sense that Jonathan
Can I pause 1 second?
is, we need to pause to change the battery?
No, the mic was plugged in the wrong
Okay.
place. So now it should be better.
Okay, can you hear me better? I hope you got all that lovely information about Jonathan and Melanie.
I think it's worse now.
It's not any better.
I was hearing you fine. This is Linda.
What do you have the mic set to in the settings? No, that's right up there. But make sure you've selected the correct microphone.
Yeah, the external I can tell when you move it that it is I think that mic just might be set at a lower volume, or it's more directional.
Okay, how's that? Okay,
That's
better?
good.
Yes, thank you for the feedback. Yes. Okay, Jonathan. Yes. Someone that we rely upon a lot for carrying that sense of continuity of practice throughout the day and throughout our days here at Sugarplum. Jonathan has had a few incarnations in this lifetime previously. He was an accomplished rollerblader. And this is a bit of a secret, but since I have the mic, Jonathan also is something of a Buddhist spoken word artist. So if you ever get the opportunity to hear one of his compositions, that's a treat. These days, Jonathan also enjoys practicing Aikido and ceramics, in addition to continuing to greatly and frequently contribute to the upkeep of Mariposa and also the Sugarplum community. And the thing I wanted to share about one of Jonathan's lovely spiritual gifts that I've experienced is that Jonathan has a really habituated response in the moment to letting people know that it's okay if they're going through something kind of difficult, or if suddenly they've been exposed as messy in their practice in front of other people. I've really benefited from suddenly like tripping over my stuff and it being seen, and Jonathan offering some kind of word that went along the lines of, it's okay, I've been there, that's what we're here for, to do this together. So that kind of wisdom and support is very wise, and I've been so grateful to receive that. Also, Jonathan is just completing a 3-week self-guided retreat, and so his sharing will be coming out of that time that he spent. So we look forward to what he offers us today. All right. Let's have a bell. And we'll start with Melanie.
Place it on this section.
You want to try that?
Yeah. But I think the mic is underneath the camera or underneath the screen.
Go ahead and do whatever you have in mind.
Okay. Dear friends, before we get started, I just want to check. Can folks hear us and see me okay? Okay, great. I'm noticing in my body the scattered energy of trying to make sure the technology works. And I just want to acknowledge that and maybe just take a moment to allow that energy to settle. Dear friends, dear community, dear teachers, welcome to the second day of our retreat here at Mariposa, the hidden reservoir, the inner resources for cooling the flames. We're sitting here on this deck at the Mariposa Institute in Ukiah, California. And this land was once settled by the Pomo people for over 5,000 years. As I speak, I want to acknowledge these First Nations peoples, their art, their spirituality, and their commitment to living in harmony with the land. We are living too on the Russian River watershed, home to 238 creeks and streams and 63 species of fish. The water flows 110 miles from Redwood Valley south to the Pacific Ocean. And we here at Mariposa are nourished by this water. I have so many memories of dipping my feet into the creek during the springtime and listening to the water rush by during the winter. And so we start with this water, the water in us and around us, in each moment. So I invite you to touch into the water flowing within you, the saliva maybe in your mouth, the water lubricating your joints, your elbows, knees, and ankles, the water cushioning your brain, the water in your bloodstream carrying nutrients to different parts of your body. Maybe even the sweat helping to regulate your body's temperature. We are beings birthed from the water, and our living bodies are vessels for it. So in this moment, I invite you to notice all of the ways in which we are nourished and taken care of by this energy of water. The water we drink, we bathe in, we wash our fruits and vegetables with, all of the ways that the water takes care of us. So I don't know how many of you know that Mariposa was once a private school for young people. This area was once home to classrooms and a dining room, and the properties here at Mariposa were once residences for the teachers. Where I live in the forest was the bus stop where kids would get dropped off in the morning. And as Joanne tells me, every day the kids would get dropped off basically right outside my front door. And the journey from where I'm living to the Mariposa land, or where I'm sitting today, was like this glorious adventure. The kids would walk through the forest, wander through a garden and up a hill. And I think Joanne mentioned that kids came back to tell her that was the most special part of their day. So sometimes when I walk from my house to this area, I inhabit the body of this child walking to class. And I can touch into the wonder of the crunch of the autumn leaves beneath my feet. Sometimes I stop to look at the bark of the trees, or there'll be a family of deer passing and we'll engage in a staring contest until I decide it's about time to move on. When I inhabit the body of a child, my mind and my body are in harmony. They're synchronized, and I exist in this state of well-being. And there's other times when my mind is cluttered and worried, angry or frustrated, and I'm rushing through the forest without looking at any of the trees. Sometimes I'm running, actually. This happens a lot. I'm late to something and I'm running up the hill. And in my body, that feeling is constriction, it's tight. And I bring this up because in my work doing trauma and resiliency, I've come to realize this incredible interconnection between the body and mind. And what I think, the state of my mind, affects the felt sense in my body, and my body and how I'm feeling will affect the thoughts that arise in my mind. And so the act of cultivation of my thoughts can bring about senses of well-being and ease or suffering in the body. And when I notice constriction or anxiety appearing in my body, anxiety as maybe a sinking feeling in my stomach, I can use thoughts in a conscious way to bring my body back into a state of well-being. So when we think about the body and mind and what we have access to and control over, that gives me some autonomy and confidence in my ability to affect my state of well-being. I wanted to briefly mention how much I appreciate Kim's invitation this morning to wake up in a state of love. And in particular, I enjoyed the way she said she has a note next to her bed that she wakes up and sees. And I find that so often I need reminders, reminders that might appear in my mind as a thought. Maybe I see this commitment, but can very easily, through intention, translate into feelings of love in the body, maybe as warmth or a feeling of spaciousness in my chest. And when I can inhabit that feeling of love, more things become possible. I can act from a place that feels solid and rooted in my sense of ethics, my well-being, rather than coming from a place of fear, anger, or difficulty. So I just wanted to start with this interconnection between body and mind. When I heard Brother Foplu's talk yesterday, I want to admit that I resonated with his description of himself as a 23 or 24-year-old man coming back from Europe. He said he was full of doubt and confusion and was just starting to become introduced to the practice. So 3 years ago, I too left the US and a job as a software engineer in San Francisco. I didn't know how to reconcile my way of life with the suffering I saw around me, the growing homelessness and economic inequality I saw on the streets. Somehow I felt specifically responsible. And I would walk to the subway station before work in the mornings, passing by the unhoused people who were asking for money, and stifle my compassion and distress with simple rationale and judgment, thinking, I have places to go to, I have meetings, I don't have time for this, and shouldn't these folks be working anyways? So I see this state of fragmentation in my body. There not being enough space or time for the compassion and pain that was arising for me in a busy schedule, working a full-time job. So I eventually left San Francisco and ended up in Israel and Palestine, as Kim mentioned, working with NGOs in refugee camps and really studying peace movements. Not sure what I thought I was getting myself into. I couldn't really escape suffering there either. It just came in different forms with different stories. I was often angry there, impatient with the slow rate of change, the disparity between the way things were and the way I imagined they should be. And I was fortunate to know the practice during my time in Palestine, to have a Sangha in which to take refuge. Over time, I realized that my purpose there, if anything, was not to solve the problem of suffering, if it can be described as such, but merely to not let it harden my heart or compel me to take sides in an argument or a political debate. to not let the knowledge of suffering close my heart to anyone. And so I was able to heal a lot of the fragmentation in my body by slowing down and allowing my pain and anguish at the suffering I saw to arise and to be seen. In this slowness, I created this kind of container for taking care of my fear, anger, and delusion. I was able to touch into my compassion and love and embed them into my work. And my work and my heart were able to come into alignment. This process of aligning my body and my mind was really about listening and responding to what was arising within me within each moment. So what I learned there is that the body needs presence and space to integrate the vast array of emotions and thoughts that we have on a moment-to-moment basis. Without integration, we can continue to act out of fear or of rage, thinking we're doing what's best, what's in harmony for ourselves. And to help with this process, I find it so useful to balance suffering alongside well-being and the ways that I think and speak. Going back to the interconnection between body and mind, if my mind is only thinking difficult thoughts, then my body will also reside in this state of ill-being. So it's about learning what the balance is, not turning away from the suffering, but also not allowing it to be the only thing. So one of the things that I learned in the trauma work I do is that the human brain is tasked first and foremost with our survival. So this means that, it has a pretty strong negativity bias. It's looking out constantly for dangers in our environment. Maybe someone says something a little bit unkind and our brain instinctively goes into a defensive mode. So our brain is always trying to protect us and prioritizes the negative over the positive. I think Rick Hansen, Buddhist teacher in Insight Meditation, says that the brain prioritizes negative things over the positive at a rate of 5-1. If I understand correctly, that means for every one negative thing that arises, we need 5 positive things to balance that equation. So one thing that we can do to cool the flames of suffering is to prioritize and give space to our wonder, our gratitude, and our joy. To come into awareness of the sorts of reminders, to inhabit the body of a child when I'm walking through the forest, to see a note next to our bedside and say, I'm going to wake up in a state of love. These kinds of things help to train the mind to bring the body into a state of well-being. So 3 weeks ago, I got into a car crash. I drove off the steep slope of my driveway, and my car barely avoided flipping over. I hit my head twice before the car collided with a tree. So I remember the moment that I survived, and my car had stopped falling. This moment basically opened my eyes after hitting my head, and realized that there was light coming into my eyes, there was color coming in, and then my brain perceived this input and said, oh, I can see. And not only that, but my brain knows that I can see. So my eyes and my brain are working. And this was like a moment of gratitude for this body that I don't think I've ever experienced before. That feeling of recognizing my own human mortality and realizing that apart from a few scratches and a small concussion, that is actually okay. And 3 weeks later, I still find myself marveling at the ability to think and to walk. When I walk, I try to walk slowly, and when I think, I pause. I celebrate the moments of creativity, wonder, and joy that still have the possibility of arising for me. For the first few days after, I don't think I experienced a moment of creativity. And so now that they continue to arise, I'm amazed at the body's capacity. My brain has this amazing ability to heal. I see how the brain fog that permeated my experience, my lived experience for the first few weeks after the crash has slowly lifted to the point where I can now talk with and remember the first part of the sentence. I can now hold meetings and keep the full agenda in mind. And I can do many more things now that wasn't possible for me immediately after hitting my head. So I'm really appreciating the transformative ability of the body to heal itself. One thing I started doing is I created this gratitude wall inspired by my friend Chris. Um, so every morning now when I wake up, I try to remember to place a note card on this gratitude wall with the things that I'm appreciating. And so far, there's so many things. Uh, the wisdom of the trees. A tree was gracious enough to stop my car's descent. Appreciating the community here at Mariposa who really stepped up in a number of ways to make sure I was okay. Appreciating friends that drove up to take care of me for the first week. So things have new meaning and new life. And as I go forth, can create reminders of this sacred nature of being. So sometimes in the midst of the flames of suffering, we lose touch with wonder and reverence. We forget our own inner being, inner beauty, and our capacity for healing. We look for healing outside of ourselves. Sometimes something like a car crash can be a bell of mindfulness. Other times we can take refuge in the practice as a means of remembering. As Brother Faplu said, we step onto the path of mindfulness, this ancient path offered to us by the Buddha and so many of our spiritual ancestors. This practice is like a refreshing river in which we can fully immerse. The fresh, cold water is like a splash on the face. It's a way we can wake up. So Brother Fap Jung said back in 2017 that mindfulness is the practice of remembering. And another definition offered by Resma Menakem, who wrote My Grandmother's Hands, is that remembering has two pieces. It has the re part, which is again or anew, and the membering part, the member being this body. So to remember is to come back, to return into the body, to inhabit the body as the source of truth. So remembering, in remembering, we can come back to the body as humble servants, ready to listen to what arises without judgment or anger. Like the parent answering the cries of their child, we can respond to the body in that moment with love and with care. So with that said, I actually want to pause and give folks a chance to notice what's arising for them in the body. Does any place have particularly strong sensations? And are they pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? If this talk has become too much, and you find your body in the red zone or panic zone that Joanne mentioned earlier, I invite you to take care, to turn off your camera, and step into whatever is most beneficial. There's no need to sit here if there's something else that you need. So as we're here, I invite all of us to recognize whatever it is that's arising for us. Maybe there's some difficulty we're experiencing or have experienced. So if we bring that thing to mind, I wonder what it is that your body needs. If you like, you can offer your body a gesture of care or self-soothing. Maybe placing your hand on your heart or a place in the body that feels constricted or in pain. I'm going to move my foot. It's frozen. Maybe there's words that you want to offer to your body. Can we invite a bell? Thank you. So when I was able to stop, I recognized that my foot had completely fallen asleep. And my mind was thinking that this uncomfortable feeling was something that I could endure until I stopped speaking. But I want to hypothesize that the point of existence for me is not simply to endure suffering, but to step into and inhabit a body of well-being. And so here I am tapping my leg so it comes back into feeling. when we're in the flames of suffering, we can touch into the soothing, cooling nature of our own compassion, our own Buddha nature appearing in the form of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the goddess of compassion, can be as fresh as a flowing river in the spring. And this is possible whenever we can pause and take a breath in mindfulness. We notice the sensations arising and falling in the body and meet any needs. We cultivate this well-being by listening to our pain and doing our best to take good care. So we practice to inhabit the body in the present moment, being present for the pain and suffering as it arises, and the pleasant sensations too. We practice to touch into reverence and wonder for this human body, for our families and loved ones and community, and for the earth. So I want to bring up the 3 Dharma seals of impermanence, non-self, and nirvana as taught by our teacher, and how this can bring about reverence in the body, how practicing with these has done so for me. So these 3 seals have the capacity to cut through delusion, the delusions that keep me in a state of forgetfulness, and the mental formations that say my body is invincible and will always remain young and healthy. The earth will always provide what I need regardless of my actions, that my communities will always be here. And existing or acting from these mental formations is not coming from, for me, a place of clarity. And I can call for me that state of being a state of forgetfulness. So when I touch into these Dharma seals, I'm able to inhabit the 5 remembrances as offered by Tai and integrate them with my experience. I can say my body is of the nature to grow old, to have ill health, and to die. I cannot escape these things. I am parts of the earth, and my actions contribute to the health and well-being of this land, the water, and the sky. I am responsible for my actions. And all that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. So in these recognitions, I can begin to settle into the fragility of my human body and my limited time on this earth. Each moment becomes sacred. Just wiggling my fingers, washing the dishes, setting up these tents, seeing my friends, everything, every act becomes sacred. My parents and brothers become sacred. You across the internet become sacred. And this embodiment of impermanence leading to a recognition of sacredness nurtures our ability to love. So Thai's poem comes to mind, at least when I was writing this talk. He says, anger in the ultimate dimension, angry in the ultimate dimension. I close my eyes and look deeply. 300 years from now, where will you be, and where shall I be? So when we look deeply into the nature of impermanence and allow it to fully become a lived experience in the body, it's sometimes difficult to hold on to anger. When we look 300 years into the future, love can spontaneously arise. So I'm recognizing that I want to leave space and time for my friend Jonathan to speak. And we're nearing about the halfway point. So I think this is a good time to pause and let me just see if there's anything else to say. Okay, so the last thing I want to say is that reverence and wonder are not meant to distract or turn away from the very real flames of our suffering. Instead, I think the challenge is to integrate suffering into our narrative, something that is worthy of being honored and cared for. Suffering has the potential to give rise to insight. And we exist in this amorphous, flowing state of life where suffering and well-being inter-are. As Brother Faplu said yesterday, there is no black and white. So each of us has this well of wisdom, clarity, and compassion in ourselves that we may call our inner Buddha nature. In moments of difficulty or exile, we can choose to make almost this spiritual pilgrimage to this well. Simply with a mindful breath in and out, with a short walk or loving touch. And this pilgrimage becomes the means by which we wake up to the sacred nature of our lives, giving us the fortitude and resilience to face even the most difficult flames. Thank you for listening. I'd like to invite Jonathan to speak as well. Thank you very much.
We on? Thank you, Melanie, for sharing all that. I really admire that unflinching attitude. Hope to cultivate that in myself. And thank you for bringing that to organizing this retreat, along with Mai and Kim, our retreat organizers. I would like to ask our organizers, what time do you want me to stop?
About 12:05.
Okay. Mai says whenever. I hear 12. Half an hour. Okay. So I really appreciate our three friends here so much for organizing this retreat. When I heard what the theme was going to be and the paragraph of invitation and introduction that was sent to you all, my mind just started connecting so many dots. It was quite hard to restrain myself in what I could talk about and all of the possibilities that they opened up. All throughout the discourses, the Buddha refers to fire as a simile for affliction and suffering, and as water and coolness and freshness as the qualities of peace and freedom, freedom from suffering. And I wonder, too, if they were aware when they decided to call it Hidden Reservoir, that the Buddha says that this Dharma is hard to see, hard to fathom. And yet, when we do learn to access it, it turns out it was hidden right before our eyes all along. So, just so much from the Dharma, from the teaching to relate to this retreat. There is one thing in the retreat description, though, that I want to push back on a little bit, and that is the idea that these are particularly fiery times. I think we could look through history and recognize fire all throughout the centuries. And actually, 2,600 years ago, the Buddha was able to say, everything is burning, all is burning. And he clarified a little bit. He asked, what is the all? What is the everything that is burning? Eyes and form are burning. Ears and sound, nose and odor, tongue and taste, body and contact, mind and feeling and mental formations. They're all burning. And burning with what? Burning with the fires of greed, or desire, or lust, or passion, this kind of grabbing and taking in gimme energy. Burning with the fire of anger, hatred, ill will, aversion, a kind of pushing away, keeping it out energy. And the fire of delusion, self-centered thinking, getting caught in this is somehow about me or about them energy. So in defining the all this way, and in defining the fires in this way, the Buddha was saying that it's actually us. The fires are inside of us. The world is just as it is. Birth is suffering. Aging and sickness are suffering. Death is suffering. Losing what we love is suffering. Encountering what we don't love is suffering. This is the world that we live in. And so these fires, they're burning in us. 3 weeks ago, I went into a personal retreat because I recognized fires burning in me. And not only were these fires burning in me, I was spreading fire around me in my relationship with my partner, with my Sangha. And so I recognized that I really needed to come back to myself to understand what has been fueling this fire, and how can I quench them. So I share that with you because I want you to know who you're actually listening to. As recently as 3 weeks ago, I was yelling and saying harsh things and slamming a cabinet. So what I'm going to share is what is the result of this personal retreat, and these practices I'm only just beginning to practice. So I just want to be transparent in that way and make sure we all understand that we're all on an even keel here. So my intention for this retreat was to dip into that hidden reservoir that space of depth and silence and coolness, and to bring more loving kindness into my relationships. So I decided I was going to practice Anapanasati every morning, the 16 stages of mindfulness of breathing. A tea ceremony in the afternoon, followed by metta meditation. Another round of Anapanasati in the evening, and chanting and touching the earth. So I'm going to share a little bit about what these formal practices have done for me, and the fruits that I'm beginning to see, only just beginning to ripen in these 3 weeks. So yesterday morning, we read the discourse on the 5 ways of putting an end to anger. And Brother Faplu shared about it beautifully also. So only add a little bit of what has come up for me during this practice. I've been reflecting on the phrase, one should know how to meditate in order to put an end to anger. So this is a meditation that we're doing. It has its time and its place. This is something that we can do when we sit down and begin to follow our breathing. Maybe it's not something to do right in the moment. Like if somebody walked into the room and knocked our lunch out of our hand, maybe that wouldn't be the best time to meditate on this person's kind qualities. Maybe that's the time to say, hey, I don't like that very much, and now I'm going to go away from you. But if we're still holding on to anger, we can sit down and reflect on all the other things that we know about this person, their kind qualities, as a way of putting an end to that anger. The image from that discourse that I really resonate with a lot is the one of wading into the lake and clearing away the algae. That makes it so clear to me that I am the first one that benefits from this practice. Kindness, whether it is my own or somebody else's, feels so much better than anger. Just because of that, it is worth doing. Just bringing the coolness and relief to myself, it is worth doing. Even still, it can be difficult. I've sat down a few times to practice and found a resistance in myself. Oh no, not for this person. I can't recognize, I can't meditate in this way for this person. That's a kind of clinging. I've recognized in that there's a clinging to view in that. There's a clinging to wanting to be right, to wanting to be the victim. And it's helpful knowing that the word the Buddha used for clinging is upadana, which actually means fuel. So this kind of clinging that I'm doing, my resistance to actually acknowledging the kindness that is in another person or offering them my own kindness, is fueling the fire in me. So do I want to cool that flame? Do I want to quench that fire or not? It's up to me, but I'm the one fueling it. The other image from that discourse that stands out to me is the one of somebody with, just got distracted by a hummingbird, is one of somebody with no kindness in their speech or actions and no kindness in their heart. Did anybody else think of our president when they heard that? I did. And then I imagined what it would be like to be the person who meets that person in the desert and takes them by the hand and gives them food and water and medicine. I don't want to be divisive. We might have some Trump supporters here. It'd be nice if we did. But he seems to me, as anybody who lacks even a modicum of kindness, to be one suffering very much, as I know I am when I can't touch kindness in myself. To be really burning with the flames of greed, hatred, and delusion. I was imagining, what if somebody showed someone like that how to put out those flames? What if somebody was able to be the kind of friend that could do that? And it was a very beautiful thought. And it also occurred to me it would be a very difficult thing to do. I know that when I'm burning with anger, I'm very defensive. I won't let my guard down. I don't want to be seen as weak or needy. Instead, I want to be seen as powerful and strong. That's what anger is. It's a display of power and strength, even if it's false. So you would really need to earn that person's trust first and show that you understand their suffering. You would probably need your own friend to support you in doing that. And then that friend would need a friend. And then pretty soon you'd have a Sangha. I would like to offer that as a form of engaged Buddhism. Recognizing that the violence that we see in the world, the oppression and the exploitation that we see in the world are the results of greed, anger, and delusion burning in people's hearts, in our own hearts. And a real deep form of engagement is putting those fires out in ourselves and offering people the tools and the teachings to help them put them out also. And offering a vision of what kind of life is possible when we do that. The freedom and joy that is there on offer for us to claim. So what's being taught in that discourse is a form of meditation, metta meditation, because it's letting our attention dwell on kindness. Perhaps a more familiar form of meditation, loving kindness meditation, are the recitation of affirmations. May I, may you, may we all be filled with loving kindness, well, peaceful and at ease and happy. And we're led through practicing that way for ourselves, with someone for whom we can easily feel affection, with someone more neutral, and then finally to somebody more like, in my case, our president, or anyone else with whom it is difficult to feel affection. I've resisted that too. Sometimes it's difficult to allow kindness from myself, and that same clinging can appear in offering kindness to that difficult person. So I was actually a bit relieved to find that form of metta meditation actually isn't offered in any of the discourses. It's useful, and once I am able to bring myself into that place of readiness, has brought me a lot of benefit. But the way that the Buddha offered metta meditation in the discourses is to sit and fill the northern quarter with loving kindness, and then the western quarter, the south, the east, above, and below, just to send our loving kindness out in all those directions. And so I've been practicing that way in the afternoons, in this cabin that I've been able to retreat in, which has this beautiful little tea room, one wall of which is glass, so I can look out, facing west. And somehow I just naturally shifted into, rather than thinking north, south, east, west, in front, to my left, to my right, and behind me, above me and below me. And I've found that a really helpful and sort of a sneaky way of getting around the resistance that comes up when I try to direct my metta, my kindness, towards a particular person. So when I'm sitting in that I'm trying to be skillful about how I share, because my my work life and my practice life and my daily life, they're all right here. I've combined them all. So all the people who irritate me are also right here. So I just offer that disclaimer. So when I'm sitting in that room and I'm sending loving kindness to my left, that is up the road from Mariposa. Most of the cabins that we all live in are up there. Eric lives up there. Henry lives up there. Ariana lives up there. Carly lives up there. And Joanne lives up there. And then all of our neighbors live up there. I'm sitting in that cabin, which used to be Indriani's cabin, who you might have met on other retreats. And right now she's in Seattle and is going to stay there. And Seattle is to my right when I'm sitting there. And so I've been practicing loving kindness, and when I send loving kindness to my right, I'm aware, oh, Indriani is just right there to my right. And just that recognition has been healing. Indriani left with, there was some tension that we've been healing. And just this practice alone has helped me feel so much more at ease and warm and healing. Behind me is this place where Mai is while I'm meditating, and I can really feel Mai just behind me, physically and supportively behind me as I'm meditating. I noticed that 45 minutes of this meditation creates a real attitude of general openness and loving kindness throughout the rest of the day. And I wonder if that's because it's not an object-specific kind of kindness, but it is an opening up to what is in front of me, behind me, and all around me. And a real deep yearning for it all to be well and peaceful. Sometimes I've been wondering if these aren't somewhat contradictory claims. As I'm looking out that window, I'm aware of the mice that live in the ground, wishing them to be peaceful and happy, and also wishing for all the things out there that like to eat mice to not be hungry. So we have to recognize that our kindness is in response to the suffering in the world, the suffering that's not going to go away. And that can be a source and a fuel for the continual rekindling of kindness. So I've been enjoying some practical effects from this practice. I hope Mai would agree with me, but right now I'm remembering times where I was more sensitive and aware of a need that might have. And it's not often that I think about taking care of the garden, that I would initiate doing that on my own. I usually wait for a request to do so and then might resent it a little bit when it comes. But one day after doing this meditation, I was walking back from the cabin. I had something to do, and then I saw the garden there, and I thought, oh, Mai's at school right now. She'd probably appreciate it if I watered the garden. It's about a 2-hour chore when the well is dry, like it is right now. And I didn't feel any hostility or resentment to that at all. I felt like I had stepped into that lake and brushed aside the algae. And I even reinforced that feeling a little bit by giving myself a spray with the hose. I think, oh yeah, coolness. This is nice. I've also been, I think, again, maybe we should ask Mai, less triggered, able to hear things that might upset me with more equanimity, more openness, more willingness to say, oh yeah, I might have actually done that thing that you're complaining about. Or I thought Fa Blue expressed this beautifully yesterday. Giving up my own view doesn't necessarily mean accepting your view. And when I'm able to clear all views away, what really remains is a true and authentic desire to connect and to understand. So I might have been able to do that a couple times in these past 3 weeks and not been so successful other times these past 3 weeks. But I know now what the direction is that I want to keep going in. And that knowing is a turnaround. I've been a bit skeptical and doubtful of these type of visualization and imagining practices before. Wondering if I'm just farting in the wind. I have to admit, when people have sent emails or things like that, sending metta, I always think, thanks. But please keep doing it. It's useful, I've learned. And it's actually backed up by research. I was recently reading some studies about how thinking about something, rehearsing it in our mind, is almost as useful as doing it. There are studies that show people actually can build muscle just by thinking about lifting weights. And so now it totally makes sense, it totally makes sense how doing these practices, I've more naturally felt more present and more willing to show up and be helpful and to put aside my own anger. The opposite can also be true. I can also recognize all that has manifested out of my ruminations on the unpleasant and blame making and storytelling. I think one name for this hidden reservoir that we're talking about could be our attention. What are we putting our attention on? And what are we fueling and feeding with our attention? The fact that somehow we're able to move our attention, that we can recognize it's right there, but I want it here, and we can do that. That is a resource that we can access and is there for us in any moment, no matter where we find ourselves, no matter where I've found myself. I always have the opportunity in that moment to say, back over here. What time was I supposed to stop?
Yeah.
Now?
Or
Huh?
5 minutes. I mean,
Oh,
between now and then.
let's see. Okay, moving on. The other practice I wanted to share about, one of the other ones I wanted to share about, was touching the earth. So there are many ways to practice touching the earth in our tradition. My favorite way is to the 3 jewels. And so in our tradition, we have 3 touchings for each jewel: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And since this retreat for me was about putting out my Sangha fire, I'll spend some time dwelling on that one. So the first time that we touch the earth, we're taking refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. I also want to mention, we heard about these confidence in these qualities mentioned in the discourse on stream entry that was read for us this morning. So touching the earth to the 3 jewels is a practice of cultivating confidence and faith in these 3 jewels. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. I wonder if anybody this morning was confused by hearing the phrase, the 4 pairs when taken as pairs and the 8 individuals when taken as individuals. The Buddha defined the Sangha as stream enterers, people who have confidence in the 3 jewels and the mindfulness trainings, and those practicing for the fruit of stream entry. For once returners, non-returners, and fully realized arhats, and people practicing to attain those fruits. And that has been useful for me to know, because there are times when I need a bigger Sangha than what I have immediately in my vicinity. And becoming really immersed in this tradition and forming friendships with Dharma teachers and monastics, and familiar with the discourses in which the great disciples of the Buddha are described and their lives shared, I've been able to touch the earth and touch my own confidence in those people, in the ability to awaken and to live a life of mindfulness and practice. The second time I'm touching the earth to the Sangha, it's dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. So I've been literally dwelling with Sangha since March of 2016, when I lived at Deer Park for close to a year and then moved here. And what that has meant to me is having a supportive environment. I can bow and take refuge in the fact that I need help, and I need my environment to be set up in such a way to where I can't go to food whenever I'm feeling stressed out or anxious or lost, or I can't go to the internet for the same reasons. I've also learned that dwelling means more than just physically being here. I really need to make myself transparent so that the light the Sangha shines can shine through me. Am I sharing with my friends who are here what my challenges and practices are, what my struggles are, how I've been not living up to my own intentions and aspirations? And also, how can you really connect with me in a way that brings me joy? What are the things that I like that you can share with me so that I really have that sense of community? And the third earth touching is taking refuge in the Sangha in myself. I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities, to embrace all beings and support their transformation. It can be hard to know what the Sangha in myself is. I'm helped by a guided meditation that Thai has offered. The Sangha is the 5 skandhas, working in harmony. The five skandhas are our nervous system, our body and mind. When my nervous system is regulated, at ease, and clear, I can take refuge in that. And I can believe in that. I should be making choices that bring me there. We talk often about how, it's not helpful to white knuckle it through our meditation. It's not helpful to white knuckle it through our life either. One example of this is me going into personal retreat in the first place, which I decided to do after reading about the Buddha himself going into solitude. So there were times when there were difficulties and challenges in the Sangha, and he left because he understood that just as important as his own practice is, his environment is. And what he was seeking was a regulated and balanced nervous system. So I would like to offer that as another form of engaged Buddhism. That cultivating that balance is the place from which we begin to build fourfold communities and make these practices available to others so that they can also benefit from them. So dear friends, I've shared over my time. I have a bit more to share, but we'll find another time. Thank you for listening.
So, deep gratitude and thanks to both Melanie and Jonathan for your practice and for your willingness to be vulnerable with the community and sharing. Our next activity will be the 5 contemplations. So we'll say for lunch, and we needed a little bit more time yesterday when we said them. How about we say them at 12:35?